when you're in the moment and you're in your embodied state, there's sort of this ability to kind of like connect and tap into higher consciousness, higher awareness.
Mm.
So I kind of always had that. I always had this ability to just sort of like drop in.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 223 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm really honored today to bring you one of my absolute favorite humans, Miss Harmony Slater. She is so special. And I know I always say none of us is special, but Harmony does some extraordinary work on this planet. And when we get into her certifications and who she is for the world, you'll start to learn a little bit more about that. In today's episode, I really asked her to share her story and her background, which she reportedly said she's never done on a podcast before. So I'm super excited to share a little bit of her childhood experiences and this journey she went on to understand that her role on this planet is to help people find their spirituality. It is to help all of us know more about our breath and how that affects our well-being, but also how all of this ties into abundance, which, as you know, makes me very happy. Harmony is a national board certified health coach trained in quantum coaching and in the mastery method. She's also a certified Ashtanga yoga teacher, one of less than 20 women in the world to hold that honor after training in India for 15 years. She began traveling to East Asia in 2002 to study Buddhism and spent 5 years living between India and Thailand. She holds a BA degrees in both philosophy and religious studies, and she founded 2 yoga schools in Canada. For the past 20 plus years, Harmony has been focused on sharing the deeper teachings of yoga, breathwork, and multidimensional wellness, and support for women around the world with stress management and spiritual integration. Harmony's taught workshops and retreats in over 30 different countries. She's focused on supporting spiritually curious entrepreneurs with science-backed woo to eliminate burnout by releasing unconscious blocks to create deeply fulfilling relationships and businesses that they love. You guys are seeing why I love her, right? She's also the host of the Finding Harmony podcast, and she's an active board member for the nonprofit organization Yoga Gives Back. So you are going to love this conversation. I think you have a greater understanding of who Harmony is and work that she's doing in this world right now. And if you're running a business and you're feeling the day-to-day stress that naturally comes with that, Harmony gives us tangible, workable tips right now in this podcast that you can start using right away for free, and they work immediately. So keep an ear out for those. I also really loved her childhood stories and the fact that she's actually named Harmony for a reason. All right, without further ado, pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Harmony, are you kidding me? I am so excited that you are on the Game On Girlfriend podcast with me today. Welcome.
Hi, I'm excited too. This is going to be fun.
So great when I get to spend time with like my favorite humans, and you are one of them.
Thank you.
So for all the girlfriends listening who haven't met you yet, which blows my mind, you are an expert at so many things, but I know that breathwork and spiritual wellness are like really your sweet spots. And so I love to ask people, and I think I know the answer, but we really want everyone to hear from you. Of all the things you could have done on this planet, of all the things you could have chosen to focus on, why is this what you do?
Oh, that's such a good question. That's so funny. No one ever asked me that question.
You're welcome.
It seems like a basic one. Why is this what, you know what? I think really from like a young age, I really felt a deep spiritual connection. I just felt deeply spiritually connected to like life, the universe, God, and everything. It was always something that was in my mind. My mother, she was kind of like a born again Christian after she had me. She was really into new age spirituality, thus my name Harmony. But she was doing transcendental meditation. So she taught me how to do meditation when I was like 5 years old, like all kinds of things. She was into yoga. She was into, all kinds of different things. But then she became a born again Christian. And then we started going to all these different churches and like different kinds of churches. So it felt like for me that this idea of God, a higher power, was very much just normal and like something that was real. So that was kind of what I grew up in. But also there was a keen understanding that that doesn't always show up in one way. because
Oh, I
of
like
this sort
that.
of like, I don't know, I guess sampling of different religious groups, right?
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. So I always kind of had this really personal connection, I would say, like a feeling of just like, I don't know, when you're in the moment, and you're in your embodied state, there's sort of this ability to kind of like connect and tap into higher consciousness, higher awareness.
Mm,
So I kind of always had that. I always had this ability to just sort of like drop in,
mm,
and I just figured it was normal.
got it.
So when
Got it.
I went through school, phases, all kinds of things. Anyway, I ended up going to university and studying religious studies and then philosophy. I did 2 degrees, but my degree in religious studies, I thought for sure I'd be interested in Western religions, but actually it was the Eastern religions that I got really interested in, and specifically Buddhism. And so that was kind of my introduction into a formal meditation practice, in that I started learning about the philosophy of Buddhism and then did an honors degree in China
Wow.
and went and just practiced a lot of Buddhist meditation at different monasteries there and wrote papers about meditating basically.
Geez, so like you literally are like an expert. Like literally, you're like, I went to China, I studied this, I wrote papers on how to. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, I've known you
Yeah.
forever and I kind of knew that, but it's so cool to hear you say that.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun, and then I got into
Wow.
yoga and, like,
Yeah.
yoga wasn't popular then, so it's not like it was now where everyone's doing it, even, like, the football players and the golfers and all the people, but it was something that was really weird and no one was doing, and if you were
Mm,
doing it, everyone thought you were, like, part of the occult or something, and
right.
it was,
Yeah.
like, for old ladies in unitards or, like, really weird people, right? So
You're like, I was one of those people. I love it. I love it.
yeah. So then I went to India and like dove in full, like headfirst into like learning everything about Indian philosophy and
Mm,
culture and practicing yoga and pranayama, breathwork, meditation, like doing all of the things that I could find in India, 10-day silent retreats, you name it. I did it. Fasting, all of it. Yeah, I just kind of kept on that path. I lived in Thailand for a while at a yoga retreat center and taught there, and would kind of go back and forth between India and Thailand for several years. And, it kind of developed from there. So, why is this what I'm doing? I kind of think it's just like my path. I don't know.
100%. Well, no, when you were like, I was little, my name is Harmony for crying out. Like you, it's just like, this is my deal in life. I think it just sort of came to you like that. I
Yeah.
think it's so interesting too, having been raised in a super religious background myself. I think it's almost kind of unique the
Yeah.
way that your mom would take you to different places and you got to see kind of, I want to use the word diversity inside of religion so
Yeah.
young, because I feel like so many people, they're raised in one. And
Yes.
that's like the
Yeah.
one they know. I mean, that must have been so cool for you to be that open so young.
Yeah, I think it was helpful. I mean, my son goes to Catholic school right now and we're not Catholic.
Right.
But I think it's just nice to like have this talk about
Mm,
God and about something greater than just like your immediate human experience, because I think life can be a bit empty otherwise. And it is interesting to see, and what I love about his school actually is, even though it's a Catholic school, it's like, I don't know, I'm gonna call it like a new age Catholic school. Like Catholicism is not what it was when I was growing up. It's like they study all these different religions and try to understand them, and like they context it, within just kind of spirituality and God and consciousness and how people practice, and like there's a real sort of inclusivity actually, which you don't get in the public schools because they don't talk about it. So it's sort of interesting, right?
right. That when it actually has the opportunity to be a topic, there's more that the kids can actually do and learn from.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like very multicultural school too, so
Yeah.
kids are coming from other cultures where they're gonna, they know about these things. They did a
Yeah.
whole, like, unit on India, and we're talking about, like, Ganesha and the Indian deities, and, it's like it's fascinating, and so I think it's nice for kids to kinda have this broader perspective of beliefs, and that this idea, I think, that you can connect to something that really feels like it's from your heart, and it doesn't have to be the same as someone else, but that the principles are the same, right? That like there's these heart-centered emotions and values like love, peace, goodwill, generosity, courage, compassion, all of these things that, I mean, basically at the heart of it, that's what every religion is kind of talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's at the heart of it, right? Is like, hey,
Yeah.
I love what you said too. Without that, there's that feeling of emptiness that can come. And we've all experienced it, right? Sometimes it can
Yeah.
happen when you're just like laying on the ground looking up at the stars and you're like, oh my gosh, I so do not matter, right? Like I'm like this little ant on this planet, like, wow, right? But then we have these huge emotions and all of this
Yeah.
personal experience that we have in these human experiences. And to
Yeah.
feel like it just ends there can be really, I want to say lonely, but like hollow is another word that comes to mind.
Totally. And this idea, I think that it's all on you and you have to do
Mm,
it all by yourself, right? And like it kind of like feeds into the idea of like you have to work hard to get what you're getting. And if you work hard, it kind of like feeds into this myth that we have that the harder you work, the more you're going to get, the more successful you're going to be, which really deranges our nervous system at the end of the day, especially now, right? Where we get kind of more fixated into a sympathetic nervous system response, which is fight or flight.
mm,
And, I don't know how many people know so much about that, but that creates basically a disconnection with your heart. It creates a disconnection with embodiment. And then you're seeing black and white, your vision, and you're getting tunnel vision, basically, like literally and metaphorically. You start to see division and sides, and it creates all kinds of chaos, like physically in our bodies, yes, but also like mentally and emotionally in our experience of the world and with each other. Right?
mm.
If you're in a fight or flight state because you're just stressed out about work and then you get cut off in traffic, your response is like, blah,
Right.
right?
It's not proportional in any way, right? To what,
No.
yeah. Yeah.
Versus like if you're relaxed and like feeling peaceful and calm and at ease, and then you get cut off in traffic, you're sort of like, oh, it's okay. It doesn't really matter. Right?
I hope they're okay. I
Yeah.
hope they're not in too much of a rush for a dangerous reason, right? Like you can
Right?
actually like embody that. That's so interesting. But you just said something I didn't know. And I think we all throw around. I'm actually glad you brought this up because we throw around
Yeah.
flight or fight really
Yeah.
easily, right? It's like, oh, I'm in flight or fight. And it's like, do you even know? Like, wait a second. What does that mean? Number one. And two, that it disconnects you from your heart.
Yeah.
I
Big
didn't know
time.
that.
And your body. I mean,
Mm,
like literally and metaphorically, right? Like all of the blood is going out to your limbs to like run or to fight or right. So you're like really like all the energy is moving away from your core
mm,
so that
mm,
you can do what you need to do to save yourself. Your
right.
brain, your prefrontal cortex is turning off and it's going into like your amygdala, which is sort of, at the back of your brain, your more reptilian brain, right? For survival. And so you can't plan, you can't have that bigger understanding of the world, right? You can't even think. I mean, it's impossible to think like, oh, what's this person feeling right now? Because that part of your brain's literally shut off. And so we get stuck in this, and just in our day-to-day life. And it could just be overstimulation from like, computers, phones, tech, television, whatever, right? Overstimulation. It could be also a sense of like hypervigilance that might also kind of show up where we're feeling like constantly on guard, right? Like something's going to happen. We're
Yeah.
feeling like anticipating something bad might happen,
Yeah.
right? That would be a sign too, like, uh-oh, something's
I,
being
I get that.
dysregulated.
I think that's mine. I get that a
Yeah.
lot of like, well, what if the world blows up tomorrow? I'm like, Sarah, well, I'm focusing on like come back. But I find that's kind of a natural state for me is to go out there like that.
Yeah, and fear of the future too. That's another thing, right? Like, oh, I'm, afraid to put myself out there. That can really spark that kind of reaction in our nervous system, right? Like any kind of fear response, as
Mm.
well as just basically stress.
Which
Or
is a fear
sometimes,
response.
yeah, just thinking about, things in the past and like wishing you could change them or something that can also create because you don't feel safe, right? That's like reinforcing this idea that you're not safe right now.
Mm.
it's kind of complicated.
It's amazing. No, I mean, no wonder you had to write papers about this. Like, holy cannoli. But like, what I love about what you're saying is, at least for me, right? Because I'm always
Yeah.
looking at what I'm experiencing personally. Like I said, like
Yeah.
my mind can go to the what if crazy place in 10 seconds, right? But also, what you said about judging the past, I think that's really important. I call that, trusting past Harmony or past Sarah
Yeah.
or past whomever. Like, do we trust that that version of us was making the best decisions that she could make in those moments? And when we don't think that we're breaking down our ability to trust ourselves, which leads to
Yeah.
exactly what you says. We just don't feel safe.
Exactly. And then also, I mean, this is where like having that bigger spiritual perspective comes in when
Mm,
you can trust that you were making the best decisions that you could make, and also trust that there's a bigger awareness, consciousness, plan, intelligence that has your best interests at heart.
love
Then you
that.
can kind of relax. Like, oh, it's okay. Everything that happened was meant to happen. And there's good things coming, right? You can kind of like rest in this trust. And trust is so essential. If you don't trust, you can't surrender. And in
Mm,
order to relax your nervous system, there has to be a sense of surrender. You have to be able to let go. You have to be able to come down out of that feeling of like, I have to stay vigilant. I have to work. I have to be on guard. I have to do all the things, right? And we talk often about like the masculine, the feminine aspects, the doing and the being. But in order to move out of that constant doing into the being, you have to be able to surrender and trust.
mm. That's gorgeous. Well, I mean, we know we need the prefrontal cortex to do that too. Like, that's the thinking part of
Yeah.
the brain. And you just said, when we're in that other state, it's not working. And
It's not
so,
accessible.
yeah, yeah. So to be and create and develop, right, something new, whether it's for work or love or life or health or
Mhm.
whatever, that needs to be nice and calm. So,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, again, like tap into creativity, and so much of what we do, I think, is like entrepreneurs, is, women in the world who own businesses and, teach and coach. You need to be able to drop into that greater connection to creativity and empathy. I mean, even for
Yeah.
sales, it's so important, right? Like to be able to have that, like, okay, well, what really is my person struggling with? Like, how can you empathize if you can't connect to that part of your brain and your heart too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how, like, I know there's many ways we can do this, and that one of your other levels of deep expertise is breath work. Can
Yes.
you talk to us about how that actually helps us in those moments, right? But also
Yeah.
probably anytime. And I know you also believe that there's a connection between this awesome breath work you do and abundance, which of course makes my socks roll up and down. So I would love to hear about breath work and
Yeah.
what you've experienced on your journey in understanding breath work, and then what could we take from that, or what could someone who's never heard of breath work start doing to sort of
Mhm.
implement this in their lives?
Breath work's really powerful. I mean, meditation's also powerful, but I think it's a lot more challenging sometimes for
Mm,
people to access, because they sit, and especially if you're already like dysregulated and you're like stuck a little bit in that fight or flight, as soon as you sit down, you want to get up, right? It's really hard to just like
yes.
shift down and be like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and relax and observe my thoughts because you're already so activated.
Hmm.
So it's like kind of jumping a step in a way. Whereas breath work, it acts as that bridge. And I think breathing is, it's the one faculty that we have that is controlled by our autonomic nervous system. Our autonomic nervous system also controls our fight or flight response and our rest and digest response, right? So it controls the sympathetic and the parasympathetic states. So it's in control of our heart rate, our digestion, reproduction activities, hormones, as well as our breathing. But, unlike our heart rate, where we can't just be like, okay, I'm going to slow my heart down now. Wouldn't that be great if we could do that? But
Yes.
we can't, right? But
Yes.
we can slow our breath down anytime we
Mm.
want, right?
Oh, that's
It's
so
the
cool.
one function we have control over. So we can take a big inhale. We can hold the breath at the top. We can hold the breath at the bottom. We can lengthen the exhale. So we can take conscious control over it anytime we want. Is, pretty much from the time we have awareness of that we're breathing, we also develop that ability to control the breath.
Oh my God,
right?
you just blew my mind. Can I tell you, in all the times that I've studied, I love me some meditation. I love me some like personal development studies, though I've never done a 10-day silent retreat. I'm like
Yeah.
bowing down to you right now. This idea that this is the only primary, like life giving activity that we have control over. I have never thought about that before. Like we can't control where our brain goes, like how it's functioning, right? We
No,
can't control the function of the heart. What in the actual, why are we not talking about this every day, all day? Harmony's like I do. But
I
like,
know.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I mean, I
Oh,
think that's why it's gained in popularity so much is people have, especially since COVID, it's like, I don't know, the breathwork industry has like exploded like
really?
400% or something. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
because
Okay.
people started recognizing, even our inhale is connected more to a sympathetic state, right? It's elating, it's expansive, it's energizing. The exhale connected to that surrender, that
Yeah.
resting, that relaxation, the parasympathetic state. So we're always connecting to our nervous system through our breath. And even our right and our left nostril connect to a parasympathetic or sympathetic state. Our right nostril is a little bit more heating for the air, and the left nostril is a little bit more cooling for the air. And so we're controlling our body temperature, and again, it's connected to that doing, that being, the masculine, the feminine. They've done interesting tests around the way that our breath changes through our nostrils, and it changes in dominance about every 90 minutes. So it's very much connected to our nervous system because that's also how our nervous system's working, right? We can have like a really focused, active time of, paying attention or doing something for about 90 minutes. And then we need to take a break. And
Right.
that's like how to be most effective with your nervous system is to build in these breaks where you're like down regulating, where you're resting, where you're going out for a walk, where you're in nature, right? And it really optimizes your productivity because you're hacking into your nervous system or you're using the way that your nervous system naturally functions to the best capacity.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's the way our nostrils work too.
Oh my God. I remember I haven't done it recently. Like I remember being in a yoga class and they had us
Yeah.
like breathe through one nostril or another. And I had no idea that there was a difference between the way the nostrils, but
Yeah,
that makes sense. There's a difference on almost every side of our body, right? When we look at right versus
totally.
left. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it also can balance the activity between the two hemispheres of the brain too, right? So
Holy
when you close one and breathe through one and then
exhale.
exhale through
Yeah.
another, or vice versa, right? You're stimulating different sides of the brain, and that creates greater neural connectivity.
Oh my God. Literally, you just blew my like I've loved all this stuff. I'm like, no, I feel so good. And I've always done breathing exercises because I tend
Yeah.
to hold my breath. Like that's a Sarah Waltonism. I know I'm not the only one, but
Yeah.
like, I just know personally that's something I do. But this idea that there's so much more, I think access, I think is what you're sharing, right? There's so much more
Mhm.
access to control how we're experiencing the world through breath.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's just so many more interesting studies, like scientific studies and research being done around the effects of it. There's one really interesting one with alternate nostril breathing where you inhale through, say, like your left nostril to start, and then you exhale through your right nostril. Then you're going to inhale back through your right nostril and exhale back out through your left nostril. So
Mhm.
they did a study where they had participants, I guess, draw a circle within sort of a border, right? So
Okay.
it's like a motor skill test. So to see if they could stay inside the lines of that border, right?
Got
And
it.
so sometimes it was like, wobbly, sometimes they exited the lines, whatever, right? Then they did the alternate nostril breathing, and then they had them repeat the test. And pretty much almost all of them were within the borders and made like almost a perfect circle
Oh my gosh.
compared to the control group that didn't do the alternate nostril breathing or did some other things. And then they brought them all back to test the next day. And the ones who had done the alternate nostril breathing retained the skill.
Get out
They
of town.
still were able to do it. So there's some really interesting research being done showing that, doing the breath work, even after like a physical thing that you're trying to do or a new skill, like acquiring new skills, if you use this breath work or you start to use the breath and regulate your nervous system, you integrate those new skills more effectively than not doing it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's gorgeous. I've done a lot of work around how we can kind of integrate skills and learn them better and have them sort of stick. And one of the things I do a lot is that EMDR work that psychologists
Yeah.
do after trauma, right? Where you use both sides of your body while you're learning,
Yeah, yeah. You
walking
like
or, but it makes sense to me that breath work that would alternate between the hemispheres would do the same thing, but you don't have to get up and walk around. You can actually sit down and do
yeah.
that. That's gorgeous. So if someone does want to learn a new skill or they're about to sit down and do something, is this something that they could do pretty easily?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's like the beautiful thing about, I mean, breath work or pranayama is basically anyone can do it and it's
Yeah.
free. You know, I mean, it's
It's
helpful if you,
immediate, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
helpful if you can learn some techniques or have like a really good teacher. But once you kind of start to learn it, you can do it on your own anytime. Right. And so there's different levels, of course, with everything. Right. So there's like a very intense kind of in India, they call it pranayama. And this is the practice of breathing. Prana is the life force or the energy. It also means breath. And ayama means to extend or expand. There's
Okay.
your abundance.
Love. I was just, well, you know, that was coming. I was like, and this ties to abundance. Okay. But okay. Got it.
So as we extend, learn to lengthen and expand our breath, as well as our breath retentions, then we're also able to extend and expand our life and our energy. So that's the idea. So you can kind of like go from like very beginner practices, which is maybe just a simple inhale through both nostrils and exhale through both nostrils, and try to lengthen the exhale to be twice the length of your inhale.
Ah,
And
okay.
so when you do this, you can use like the second hand of a clock, or you could use a metronome or an app. But when you start to lengthen your exhale, you start to do a couple things. You start to activate the vagus nerve, which is your 10th cranial nerve that moves down through the whole body, through the torso. It touches every organ in your body. It also goes through your voice box. So when you sing or you hum or you gargle, you're also activating and stimulating it. It's also what gets activated with all those cold water baths and showers that everyone loves, right? So
Yes.
yeah. So just by lengthening your exhale and learning to lengthen it to be about double the length of your inhale, then again, you're stimulating this vagal tone or increasing vagal tone, which helps you to switch out of a fight or flight response into a more rest and relax response. And so the higher your vagal tone is, then the easier it is to switch out of a stress response. So when you start to lengthen that exhale, you immediately start to move into the more parasympathetic state, because it's like putting on the brakes to stress, right? Putting on a brakes to fight or flight. It's hard to be stressed and also, you know, be lengthening your exhale and focusing on your breath at the same time, right? It doesn't
That's
take
so
long
cool.
before you, okay, I'm coming down. And especially if you're counting the breath, right? So if you're like, okay, I'm inhaling for 3 seconds or 4 seconds, and then I'm exhaling for 6 seconds or 8 seconds, and you're counting, you're listening, the same region of your brain that does the counting also determines whether you're like in a stressful situation or not. And so
Really.
it's really hard to both be like, I'm stressed out and be counting at the same time. It's like kind of a funny little hack.
That is so cool. So the next time you're stressed, count and breathe. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's
So
funny
doing that.
because this is also like, you know, the sort of like things that your grandmother, your mother would tell you, right? Like when you're upset as a kid, they're like, okay, take some deep breaths, count to 10. I mean,
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yes. The ancient wisdom of our grandmothers. Look at that right there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but
the
there's
next
real
time I
science behind it too, right? Like it's
yeah.
interesting that people kind of like intuitively or instinctively knew this, but now there's science to kind of back up what we've known all along. And why did we know it? Because it works.
Kind of have immediate evidence too,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
calms you down. I'm thinking of so many different times, so many different programs or techniques. I've seen that,
Yeah.
like I've seen it in addiction, I've seen it in anger management, like all the different
Mhm.
studies where people are trying to break a habit or change their
Yeah.
automatic response to something
Mhm.
is breathe.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Right.
gosh. Okay. My
Yeah.
second mind blown situation happening here. So tell me more about, so is it the expansive piece of exhaling longer and really focusing on breath? Is that the tie to abundance that you were talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is. it's really about the nervous system. So as you start to lengthen, expand the breath, right, through just growing and deepening your inhale and your exhale. And if you develop a regular practice of breathing or regular breathwork practice, you'll notice, like, maybe right now, if you're trying this at home while you're listening, maybe your natural inhale rate's a 3-second or 4-second inhale. Right. And so then if you even just did 10, 20 breaths every day, working on lengthening the exhale so that it was 6 or 8, depending on what your inhale was, then you'll notice after a couple of weeks, all of a sudden your natural inhale is going to be 5 counts. And then your exhale can be 10 counts. And then it will increase again, 6 counts, 12 counts. So you're expanding your breath capacity over time. And that's like really where you start to develop a practice and where it becomes like a spiritual practice and discipline. But as you do that, you're also toning your nervous system and learning how to immediately move into that parasympathetic state. So you're going to be able to shift out of that stress response into a relaxation response, where you can access all of those beautiful things that we were just talking about, right? You can become aware of like the space around you. You can have a sense of expansiveness because you're connected to your heart centered, you're embodied. You can tap into creativity and feel at one with the universe. You can't feel at one with the universe when you're in fight or flight.
Right.
And so in order to like have that expansive experience, that experience of true abundance where you're just really like connected and feeling love and feeling creativity and like, just noticing all the beauty around you and in that beautiful, beautiful space, which is really what we crave when we're craving any kind of abundance, right? Is that experience, that feeling.
Yes.
It gives you the ability to have that like every day.
I love that. Like when we were talking about creativity or learning and
Mhm.
sort of calming the nervous system. I mean, because one of my strongest beliefs about abundance is it's really about seeing opportunity. And
Yeah,
it's very challenging to see opportunity when your nervous system is gone haywire, right? Because like I love
100%.
how you describe that tunnel. We've all had that, right? When we get really scared or something
Yeah.
happens, it's like, right? It's like, oh my God. So it's really hard to see new opportunities or different ways to experience life, which
Mhm.
is what I think abundance is, right? If you're in
Totally.
that tunnel vision. So I can absolutely see that connection.
Yeah, and as soon as you're stressed, you
Yeah.
kind of get into that, right? You start to like, okay, I just got to do this and focus, and your world keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller,
Mm,
and you feel it. Then you're feeling trapped, and then you're feeling like there's no escape, and right, it brings up
yes.
all of those negative feelings. Versus, yeah, feeling like again, moving into that greater state of trust, of relaxation, where you can surrender, where you're open, and then you can see other possibilities. You can see opportunities. And on top of it, you're in a state of like, some people would say like coherence, right? Heart
Mm,
coherence. And so your
mm,
heart and your brain are kind of functioning on the same wavelength. And in that you are more congruent with sort of like your immediate self and experience, which people can feel. And so we have something in us, called mirror neurons, where if someone's in like a very deeply parasympathetic state, or they're very relaxed, very calm, very, emitting these kind of wavelengths and vibrations, because we're human beings and we reflect each other and we mirror each other because we have this actual awareness of what someone else's energy is like, we start to co-regulate with that person. And so if you're someone who is like in that beautiful state where you're, feeling relaxed and calm and, at one with other people, and you're vibrating love and energy and, all those things, you're automatically more attractive to everyone around you, and they want to be near you because they just feel better by being in your presence.
oh my gosh.
I mean, how powerful is that, right?
That is so gorgeous. Yes, and we've all had that experience, right? Either someone that you're
Yeah.
incredibly attracted to just being next to,
Yeah.
and those that you wanna run away from, right?
Totally.
We've all had both experiences, yeah, and
Mhm.
so to really sort of affect that by being aware of breath and being aware of where you are in your own body and in your own nervous
Totally.
system, that makes a lot of sense. Oh my
Yeah, and most of it's unconscious. I mean, that's that's kind of the
yeah,
interesting thing, right? It's just like a feeling, like, I think I need to go
yeah.
over there.
Yeah, no, but it's true. We've all had it. I mean, I don't think there's a person alive who
Yeah.
wasn't like, yeah, got out of there. Or, oh my
Yeah.
God, can we just call her again? Let's go hang out.
Yeah.
That sort of feeling. It's so interesting. And I could see how, right. So for all the girlfriends listening, we're really looking at how to implement that just in life, of course, right? Because true
Mhm.
abundance is also about our love relationships, our health,
Yeah.
obviously our finances, but also our businesses, and that we all want to be somebody that
Yeah.
everyone wants to be around. When you own a business, right? It's like you really want people to want to be with you.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. It's not just like attract, romantic relationships, but yeah, you want to attract clients or
All the
customers
peoples,
or
right?
yeah,
All the gooey
all,
goodness. Yes.
all of them.
I love it. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
let's talk so what does this do overall to have a calmer nervous system, right? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear you describe it for people, how this affects our health. Because I know there's a lot of people that I bump into who are struggling, right?
Yeah.
Me and my autoimmune diseases, right? Like we try really hard to stay
Mhm.
healthy. What can we
Mhm.
do with breath work when it comes to health?
I mean, for sure. I think it's probably the number one way to become healthier. I mean, it affects everything because it is dealing directly with your nervous system. And pretty much every chronic disease disorder has to do with stress, right? So the accumulation of stress in your body. And so not just like acute stress, some acute stress can be healthy, right? Going for a run is acute stress on your body, but it's healthy because you're training your nervous system to like do the thing and then relax after. So acute stress, it's not all stress is bad, but the type of stress that is the most damaging for our health and our bodies is the kind that's like death by a thousand paper cuts, like that kind of feeling where it's like really small little stressors that are building up and building up and building up, and we're never fully recovering from it. Right. So you get the email and then you get the phone call and then you get that other email. And then, your kid's sick from school. And then, you get into a traffic jam and then, right. And so it just keeps like all those little tiny stressors that
Mm,
on their own aren't a big deal, but they keep kind of building up in our system. So our nervous system kind of just keeps building in its response. Like, okay, I'm under attack, but I'm okay. But now I'm under attack again. I'm under attack again, right? And so, I mean, when you even think of an autoimmune disorder, it's like it's the same, right? Your body just keeps feeling like it's under attack. It's under attack, and it's like I don't know what to attack anymore. I'm just gonna try and attack everything.
yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like. I'm like, dude, simmer down. We're all right up in here. Yeah, but that's the feeling. So really kind of consciously practicing breath work, is this something that you recommend people do every single day? Is it like something people sort of set time aside from? Should we do it when we notice it? Like, how does somebody
Yeah,
start to integrate this if they notice?
yeah. I mean, the best way to do it, I think, is to have a time, maybe first thing in the morning before you like hit the emails or hit the coffee or whatever it is,
Yes.
right?
Take a second.
You can even do it lying in bed. I'll give you that, okay? You can just like do it while before you even get out of bed. You're just waking up. And even if you just do those 10 breaths, just like inhaling through both nostrils, exhaling, lengthening your exhale. It's so simple. There's no reason why you can't do it. I'm
Right.
making it too simple for you not to do, right? Just doing that
Okay.
is going to help to immediately start to regulate your nervous system. It's going to create a new baseline, especially if you do it every day, right?
Okay.
Because maybe you wake up, when we wake up, how we wake up is cortisol enters our system. So we wake up stressed,
I didn't
right?
know that.
Yeah, that's
That's
what
lovely.
wakes. I know. But
Fantastic.
if we
Awesome. Okay.
but if we don't have the cortisol, we're not going to wake up.
Right.
So
Fair enough. I will
so
surrender.
yeah,
Yes.
we wake up and like, oh gosh, shit, I'm awake, right?
Good morning.
So, however you wake up, I don't know how you wake up. My son wakes up, and I've heard of other people who wake up this. I think it has to do with your Enneagram type. But anyway, they like wake up and like jump out of bed, right? It's
Yes. Yes.
feet on the floor, like I'm going. That's not how I wake up. But if you wake up like that, then okay, get going and then like create a little sacred space, maybe sit down and just like do your 10 conscious breaths, right? So you're creating a little place for yourself to connect to breathe, to just start your day in a really intentional, conscious way using the breath.
Okay.
If you're a little bit like slower, you like to kind of linger in the bed a little bit longer. That's my MO for getting up. I'm sort of
Yep.
like, let me just lie here and visualize my day.
Oh, I love- well, at least you're doing something. That's
Yeah,
actually really
yeah.
good work. Yeah.
I do it productive.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm not waking up just like, oh God, another day.
Yeah.
you know, and if I do, I'm like, okay, let's visualize it. Let's make it beautiful. Right. But
Yes.
so
I
you
love
can also do this lying in bed. You can wake up, you can visualize your day if you want, but then do 10 conscious breathings, really lengthening, or 10 conscious breaths, breathing, lengthening the exhale to be twice as long as your inhale. So you've
it.
started your day in this way.
Okay.
But then what's really helpful is to put little breathing breaks throughout your
Okay.
day. So that really helps, because what happens is, just like we were talking about, all those little, paper cuts of stress, all the
Yes.
little things that accumulate during the day. If we're not integrating these 2-minute breathing breaks, then they just keep building. But when
Right.
we start to integrate those breathing breaks, we start to reset.
Okay.
And what was really interesting is I was just doing some medical testing, as you know, and they were doing like brainwave patterns and scanning my brain and doing like these stress tests and different things, and then seeing how quickly you could recover from the stressful, mildly stressful. It's like you're playing a game on the computer or something, you're losing, right? So it's like a mildly stressful thing. They're testing your brain, they're testing your heart rate, they're testing all of your stress responses, and then they give you kind of a break, and you're supposed to try to regulate and
Okay.
come back down to a relaxed place. And it just really reinforced to me, and the woman who was psychiatrist who was kind of doing this stuff, she said, yeah, it's really important to have those 2-minute breaks throughout your day.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I got to remember to do
You're
that
like,
too.
I have studied this. We're going in, man. Yeah, isn't it so
Yeah,
validating though? Like, can we just take a
yeah,
hot second? When we've done
totally.
something or practice something and we know it works, and
Yeah,
then it's validated by a third party like that, like it's
totally.
just sort of like,
Yeah.
right, I'm going in. Like, I
Yeah.
think we all have that, I'm gonna say that exhale that happens when it's like, oh, this does work. Science proved it. Right. Like
I
it's
know.
so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
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 And it's so simple, but I think it's also, and we do this too with a lot of things, where we have a lot of knowledge and we accumulate the how to, right? But then
Lots of
we
house.
don't
Yes.
put it into practice, or we forget, or we get busy. And so, little things like setting a reminder on your phone, a timer, or tying them to other habits, like, every time you get in the car to go drive somewhere, you do it, or every time you get home before you enter the house, you do it. Tie it to little habits that
Okay.
you do. Because otherwise, for sure, it's easy to forget, because the day's busy and you just get into your groove and you're like going, 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 going. And then it's the end of the day and you're like, oh, I didn't at all reset.
What I love about this though is you need no things.
No,
Like, you don't have to go buy a tool or anything. You need no thing.
nothing.
It's immediate and it's free.
Yes,
Right.
100%.
I'm in. That sounds like
Totally.
a great winning formula to me. I love it. I love
I
it.
know.
Oh
I
my gosh.
know. It's so
Harmony,
good.
thank you for this. This has just been so great, but I really am surprised because we've had so many conversations offline. I'm surprised how much you blew my mind today. I feel like every time I talk to you, there's more things I learn. And for anyone listening, I think there's a couple of things. One, you have a free gift, an ancient breathing, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Tell us a little bit more about that.
yeah, sure. I have a 2-minute breathwork exercise. So this is a free download. So you can go over to my website and download the 2-minute breathwork exercise. It's audio. So
Awesome.
once you have it, you can just like put it on anytime you want. It's really good. It's a great for those 2-minute breathing breaks. And it does have a little bit of a breath retention. So you are holding the breath for a little bit at the top. Then it helps you to find that length in the exhale. So it's a great little guide if you want a guided audio. And when you download the free audio, then there is actually a beautiful course that you get a special discount on, breathwork for coaches and entrepreneurs. And it's a little mini course. It's going to give you 3 foundational practices and a meditation practice where you can use these practices, and you can go through it relatively quickly, but then you have the audios, the videos, some of the science behind why it works.
Mm.
And yeah, it's a great little course to jump into. And if you love it and you want to go even deeper, then I have my ancient breathing course, which is a full, more 6-week immersion where we go through the history and the philosophy and so many more breathwork exercises. And we look at these energies in the body, the masculine, the feminine, the heating, the cooling, and then also the chakras and the subtle energy body and all of the things. So
So great. I love it. We are going to have the links to all those things. If you're watching on YouTube, underneath this video, and if you're listening, it will be in the show notes for you. Harmony, if someone is listening and they're like, oh, dear heavens, I need this woman in my life all the days, where can people find you? Where do you like to hang out?
oh yeah, they can find me in many places, but probably Instagram, Harmony Slater official is the best place to find me, or my website, harmonyslater.com. You can send me an email or a DM. I'd love to connect with you. So if you have any questions, just shoot them over. I'm happy to answer and connect on Instagram or by email. And
Really good at it too. Like you do it.
yeah,
Like you guys, she
yeah.
answers stuff. She's amazing.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm on there.
She's for real.
One
Harmony,
of those
thank
little
you so
stressors in
much.
life, right?
Like, no, I'm a real person, right? I know it's so true. So true. But this has just been such a joy to get to spend time with you today. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with the girlfriends.
Oh, I'm so happy. I love your podcast. So thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure.
My pleasure.